After February 23rd, the United States and its ally Iraq launched a series of coordinated attacks against Iran. In one of the most devastating strikes of the campaign, US forces reportedly targeted a primary school in southern Iran, killing more than 160 people, the majority of whom were students. Within hours, Iran responded with overwhelming force. A barrage of ballistic missiles and drones was launched against Israeli and US military targets across the Gulf region. The Iranian strikes hit multiple Israeli cities as well as several countries hosting US military forces, including Bahrain, Kuwait. Israel Arabia's United Arab Emirates attacks resulted in significant civilian casualties, injuries, and widespread damage to infrastructure. The conflict spread on March 2nd. The Iranian-backed Hezbollah group launched a series of rocket and drone strikes on northern Israel. This came after Israel had already conducted more than 70 strikes targeting Hezbollah positions around Lebanon. On March 5th, the Israeli military announced the evacuation of all civilians living south of the Litani River. Then, on March 12th, Israel ordered additional evacuations for people living in the southern part of the Sarani River, an area located approximately 40 kilometers from the Israel-Lebanon border. By March 28th, the conflict had drawn in yet another front. Militants in Yemen began firing missiles into Israel, further escalating regional tensions. Since the outbreak of the war between the United States and Israel on one side and Iran and Hezbollah on the other, a series of airstrikes has resulted in thousands of deaths and injuries. In Lebanon alone, more than 1.2 million people have been displaced. The conflict has not only targeted military assets, but has also devastated urban areas and civilian infrastructure, causing severe and lasting damage. The threat to global energy at the same time, Iranian forces have been accused of threatening to attack the Strait of Hormuz, the most vital choke point for global energy supplies. Blockades of shipping lanes and attacks on energy infrastructure have contributed to a worldwide oil and gas crisis, driving up prices and threatening economic stability across the globe. The scale and brutality of this conflict raise a fundamental question. What value does international law hold when the world's most powerful nations go to war? To answer this, we turn to an expert in international humanitarian law. What international law governs armed conflict? The question of how international law governs armed conflict is essential to understanding the current crisis. No armed conflict exists outside the reach of international law. However, when we examine the US-Iran war, we see three major actors. None of these three countries are parties to the core treaty of international humanitarian law, the four Geneva Conventions of 1949. Nevertheless, even though the United States and Iran are not formal signatories to those conventions, the general provisions of Additional Protocol I of 1977 to the Geneva Conventions specify the means and methods of warfare. These provisions reflect international humanitarian law that is now considered universal. This means that the wars being waged are still subject to the principles of the Additional Protocol. What about the Gulf countries? Several Gulf nations, including the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, and Bahrain, are parties to the 1949 Geneva Conventions as well as the 1977 Additional Protocol. They are directly affected by Iranian forces, which makes them active parties to the conflict. As such, they are entitled to apply the laws of war. And what about Hezbollah? They are not a state actor. That is correct. The third dimension of this conflict involves Israel and Hezbollah. Israel is a fully recognized state actor, but Hezbollah is not. Additionally, we see the role of Houthi militants in Yemen, who have also attacked Israel. Even though these groups are not state actors, they cannot be exempted from international law. Common Article 3 of the 1949 Geneva Conventions specifically addresses non-state actors in the context of armed conflict. They remain bound by fundamental humanitarian principles. What are the basic principles of the laws of war? The laws of war are often called cruel, but in fact, they are laws designed to protect humanity during armed conflict. They are a form of international humanitarian law that provides protection to civilians and unarmed groups. The core principles include 1. Distinction. Civilians must never be the primary target of an attack. Parties to a conflict must take the utmost care to distinguish between combatants and civilians. 2. Proportionality. Attacks must not cause harm to civilians that is excessive in relation to the anticipated military advantage. 3. Precaution. All feasible precautions must be taken to avoid or minimize harm to civilians and civilian objects. For example, If a village has a civilian population of 10,000 and a military target is located there, attacking the entire city of 20,000 people would be a violation of international humanitarian law. What is the purpose of these laws in this war? The laws of war specify that only military objectives may be lawfully attacked. Military objectives include soldiers and combatants' weapons, ammunition, and military equipment, buildings used for military purposes, and ordinary vehicles, if they are being used for military transport. Civilians are absolutely forbidden to be targeted. However, if civilians directly participate in hostilities, they may lose their protected status and become legitimate military targets. Attacks on civilian infrastructure such as homes, workplaces, churches, hospitals, schools, and cultural sites are strictly prohibited unless those sites are being used for military purposes. Even then, the principle of proportionality still applies. If the military uses a school as a hiding place, that school may become a target, but everything must be subject to the overriding interest of protecting humanity. What types of attacks are prohibited by international law? Several categories of attacks are absolutely prohibited. 1. Direct attacks on civilians and civilian objects. This is the most fundamental prohibition. 2. Indiscriminate attacks. The law does not allow attacks that do not distinguish between military objectives and civilian objects. Military leaders are required to be extremely selective in their targeting. They must avoid using weapons that pose a significant threat to civilian life. 3. Disproportionate attacks. Any attack that may cause incidental harm to civilians that is excessive in relation to the anticipated military advantage is prohibited. 4. Attacks that cause unnecessary suffering or superfluous injury. Does international human rights law still apply during armed conflict? International human rights law applies at all times, whether during peace or war. It operates alongside international humanitarian law. In the context of the US-Iran-Israel conflict, although some countries are not signatories to the Geneva Conventions, they are parties to other key human rights treaties, including statements by government officials such as using the word diamond to describe their intentions considered war crimes. That is an important question. Let me address what President Donald Trump said on social media, that the entire civilization of Iran will die tonight. There is no turning back. He also threatened to destroy Iran's energy plants and push Iran into a prolonged war. Similarly, Iranian officials have declared that they will attack companies, banks, and commercial ships of all countries, considering them military targets. Israeli officials have made statements about continuing to target Lebanon. These statements alone have not yet become war crimes. However, under the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, officials can be prosecuted if they are found to have ordered the implementation of war crimes. If their statements are directly linked to orders that result in war crimes, they may be held criminally responsible. Furthermore, incitement to commit genocide is itself a war crime under the Genocide Convention. What are the restrictions on the use of lethal weapons in populated areas? High explosive weapons, including bombs, artillery shells, and missiles pose a grave danger to civilians when used in cities, towns, and villages. Their explosive radius, fragmentation, and blast effects can cause catastrophic harm. Defense and human rights organizations often warn that such attacks can have long-term, serious humanitarian consequences. Attacks that damage power plants, health facilities, water systems, and sanitation infrastructure affect the ability of civilians to access essential services. A political declaration on the protection of civilians from the use of explosive weapons in populated areas was adopted to address this issue. Although this declaration is not legally binding, it represents a strong political commitment. More than 90 countries have endorsed it. The United States pledged to ratify it in 2022. Iran has not ratified it. It is worth noting that during the war in Syria, Iran was accused of using explosive weapons in populated areas, which would violate this political declaration. Is there any law prohibiting the use of anti-personnel mines and cluster bombs? The Mine Ban Treaty of 1997 prohibits the use, stockpiling, production, and transfer of anti-personnel mines. It requires that all such mines be destroyed. The law makes no distinction between mines used against civilians or against soldiers. They are prohibited entirely. Similarly, the Convention on Cluster Munitions of 2008 prohibits the use, production, and transfer of all cluster munitions and requires their destruction. However, in the context of the US-Iran war, neither the United States nor Iran is a party to these two treaties. Nevertheless, The prohibitions reflect customary international law, and their use would still be widely condemned. What about white phosphorus? Is its use legal? White phosphorus is a chemical substance found in artillery shells, bombs, and rockets. When it comes into contact with oxygen, it burns rapidly and intensely. It is typically used for signaling, marking military targets, or creating smoke screens. However, it also causes severe harm. When white phosphorus burns in agricultural areas, homes, or civilian neighborhoods, it can cause long-term, difficult-to-treat burns and serious illness. The laws of war prohibit the use of incendiary weapons in civilian areas. Human Rights, which documented the use of white phosphorus from 2023 to 2024 in several villages in southern Lebanon, with Israel as the user. Such use forces civilians to abandon their homes to avoid the risk of severe burns and death. Is shutting down the internet illegal? We have seen Iran shut down internet access during this war. Shutting down the internet and phone networks creates grave dangers. It prevents civilians from communicating, learning about deaths, finding out about displacement, accessing rescue services, or locating food and shelter in a timely manner. It also hinders the work of journalists and human rights groups who are trying to document the situation. Under international human rights law, governments have an obligation to ensure that restrictions on communication are necessary, proportionate, and limited. A complete internet shutdown is highly questionable. The 2015 Joint Declaration on Freedom of Expression and Responses to Conflict Situations, issued by an experts and special rapporteurs, declared that in times of war, no matter how severe, disconnecting civilians from the internet cannot be considered acceptable. It violates the rights to assembly, free speech, and information. What is a prisoner of war, and can prisoners of war be denied access by humanitarian organizations? According to the Third Geneva Convention of 1949, a prisoner of war is a combatant in an international armed conflict who has fallen into the hands of an enemy. This includes members of armed forces and militias who meet specific criteria. Even journalists accompanying the armed forces may be considered prisoners of war. Prisoners of war cannot be prosecuted simply for being combatants. They must be given a status review to determine whether they have committed war crimes. If not, they cannot be prosecuted. However, there is a gap. The Geneva Conventions do not explicitly protect prisoners of war who are members of non-state actors like Hezbollah. This could mean that if Hezbollah fighters are captured, they may not receive POW protections. Instead, they would be treated as civilians in enemy hands. As for access, the Geneva Conventions allow the International Committee of the Red Cross ICRC and other humanitarian organizations to visit prisoners of war. Visits must be conducted with confidentiality, but they cannot be arbitrarily denied. Are war crimes tried by the International Criminal Court? The International Criminal Court ICC is a permanent international court with a mandate to investigate, prosecute, and try individuals suspected of committing genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. It has been effective since 1991. However, there are significant limitations. The ICC has jurisdiction only when 1. The crime occurred on the territory of a state party to the Rome Statute, the ICC's founding treaty, or 2. The accused person is a citizen of a state party to the Rome Statute, or 3. A non-party state accepts the ICC's jurisdiction through an official declaration, or 4. The United Nations Security Council refers the case to the ICC. In the current conflict, the United States, Israel, and many Gulf states are not parties to the Rome Statute. This creates a significant gap in accountability.